Good evening, everybody. System Chalk here with the 168th episode of our first YouTube run through the House of Light expansion to Book of Hours, playing as the Archaeologist. Now, this is going to be the first of a series of videos that I'm recording in anticipation of an overseas trip that I'm going to be taking. So, effectively, any episodes that I record between now and September are going to be ones that were done sort of done in haste, but more importantly, if there is a technical problem with them, this will be the first of, however many. If it's an episode in August, let's say, and there's a technical problem with it, I unfortunately will not be able to fix that in the subsequent ones. However, I will do my best to sort of keep on top of things and answer any comments as I can. Oh, excuse me. Now, I will confess, I am not 100% sure where I was going with all of this. If I recall correctly, the door and wall was knock-oriented, and I'm trying to remember if it was surgeries and exsanguinations or horns and ivories, because I think they both were. I see horns and ivories here, but then I guess we're probably leveling up surgeries and exsanguinations here. Okay, well, maybe I'll deal with that at the time, because I imagine I can probably draw out the plans based on what memories come out. Move gingerly while the pain lasts. Alright, got the old wound back. Actually, this should make it easy, because because horns and ivories is scale as is, and then heart is surgeries and exsanguinations. So I don't seem to be restoring an element of the soul. All right, that does complicate things a bit. So we're generating 1, 2, 3. 4. So we're generating 6 memories, which says to me that we want to level up horns and ivories. I do leave myself notes for what I should do next, but here the closest note that I left was that knock should be used for surgeries and exsanguinations and horns and ivories. But actually, if surgeries and exsanguinations is at 7 and we're leveling it up, it would make sense to me. We did talk about putting this in hushery, so that is actually starting to ring a bell. Okay, so we've also got the gossip from Mr. Kill. We needed the 15, so we're good to go there. Oh, conversation. Mr. Kill, Ryan Spry, doesn't mind stopping for a gossip. Add something to enhance Mr. Kill's effectiveness for the day, or just talk. Unlike some assistants, Mr. Kill can make use of wood. Now, I don't know why I didn't bother to restore an element of the soul. I think I was trying to see whether or not I wanted to apply an element of the soul towards horns and ivories, which clearly I'm not going to be able to do, but I can still make money. And I'll sort of get a bit of a read in terms of the rest. I do need to get a better idea in terms of what my overall plans are, but okay, the skill is now level 8. Its power aspects have also increased. So I note here, 1, this is just immediately after Great Signs and Great Scars, so there's one answer in terms of how set I think this is. Also the fact that it's level 8 sort of gives me an indication that I am done with that. I'm going to make a small note on my list here, just because I had surgeries and exsanguinations for something to put points into. Looks like we accomplished that. So this will mean that horns and ivories and furs and feathers are going to be the two that I focus on for the next few memories. And if memory serves, the aim here was going to be to read things like A Manual for Departure, Traveling at Night Volume 3, effectively anything with a knock aspect. Or sorry, not just knock aspect, a door and wall because of the knock and forge. Knock is the last of those two that are useful, and we will almost certainly run out the usefulness. At which point, again, we just level up some of the basics here. Things like spices and sabers would be a good example. Okay. Unhatched hymns. Hymns attributed to St. Lucia the Eyeless, patron of glassworkers and name of the hour called Meniscate. The hymns venerate every sanctioned hour, celebrating them as the sun undivided, but also suggesting that each hour may become the next. Madrigad to watchman, watchman to wolf, and so on. The hymn of the phases celebrates the Meniscate from whom we do not turn, for the truth which is beauty, the beauty which is truth, and the perfect balance between the two. The hymn of the reflections more puzzlingly celebrates the Meniscate as the sister of Janus, mother of shadow, whose visage wondrous and emptiness can reveal all truths. The Raptures of Forculus, the first volume of Abbot Geoffrey's hypothetical theological debates in the Socratic mode. If Janus were an hour, Forculus might be counted among his names, but that door remains closed, so Forculus is not. Geoffrey discusses the signs that mark doors, which might permit or forbid access to certain thoughts and dreams, speculating carefully on which of the sanctioned hours might teach or govern each sign. Ettery After, an anonymous erotic novel occasionally claimed to have been written by Ava de Wolf, although at least 2 duels were fought in her honor to avenge this slander. The novel graphically details Madame Ettery's various imprisonments, ravishments, and escapes in the debauched commonwealth of tinctures and its neighbor, the pious Atraman. It becomes apparent that many of Ettery's lovers and pursuers, Catwink, Houndskull, Niliki, are transparent allegories for inks, and that Ettery is an embodiment of knowledge pinned to paper, to her mingled dismay and delight and dismay. The author only half commits to the metaphor, though, and is clearly at least as interested in titillation as revelation. And Stolen Histories. The agitator and pamphleteer Alexander Sparrow inveighs against the monstrous serpents, thieves of history. Sparrow acknowledges 5 histories, insists the 3rd history may be overrun by coils, and warns the 5th history is already lost. Sparrow, with his usual paranoia, appears to be conflating the horror of the Worm Wars with the Great Writhing with the activities of the Great Hooded Princes. Still, he draws thought-provoking comparisons between the princes, normally conceived as exotic knocklong, and the widely feared worms. So let's focus on getting horns and ivories up first. Good. When I thought I'd understood, I'd only begun. Improve the skill to level 7. So if I wanted to get anything else done today, I would want to focus on... We've got the less than minute mark now. Now, the reason why I put Shapton here is we should still be able to get a sixpence out of this, but I don't have any plans on doing anything else with the house. What I will eventually do, though, is apply Mr. Kill to the rattling tunnels. Might be nice to work out what I'm doing with my memories here. Right now, I couldn't apply either of these to horns and ivories, but we are also sort of running out of time for the day, so I'm not holding my breath. So out of overall, in terms of activities that we're looking for, I did say that I was going to save the sealed vaults for last. Nope, dead men don't tell no bloody tales. Well, who'd listen? So the hindsight's helpful for leveling up, but I don't think we can keep that overnight. Excuse me. Actually, it occurred to me. So if I read a text with pattern, I'd be able to keep that. But I don't know if there's a knock. Excuse me. I don't think there's a knock or a scale that I can keep that will apply to the motley bed. So I think I will settle for the rattling tunnels then. The dead do not walk here, but their eyes are upon me. I can quell them, or I can feed them. Better now. So of course one option I would have is I could use this to read a book with a pattern, and then I could keep the pattern overnight, but in this case I'll take the money for the shaft. In the morning, in the game of course, I'll definitely start reading. Well, okay, I have a little bit of a challenge ahead of me in the sense that I need to find a balance between getting more memories and leveling them up, but also acknowledging the fact that we are at the end of the season. So I still think we'll be fine for a manual for departure. My goal would be, with that knock, knock and scale. So I would have a... You know what? I need to think about this, actually. So if I want to try and level up Horns and Ivories, we would take the Savage Hymn, Secret Threshold, Pattern, Hindsight, Fear, Salt, and a Stolen Secret. So where would my remaining scale come from? One would be from... okay, no, I've got it. So one can come from the Newman. So it's all hands on deck, but we will be able to use the remaining. We'll be able to use the texts. As I used to say in my youth, the day is done and so am I, but I've earned my pay. And let's see what awaits us. The Catacombs. In the days of honey, those who remembered brought the bones of their dead to the grey rock in the sea. In the time of the eagles, those who remembered brought bodies of their dead to the grey rock in the sea. In the time of the Bear King, the clans brought the bones of their dead to the grey rock in the sea. When the Wolf Kings came, those who remembered brought the bones of their dead to the grey rock in the sea. Throughout all the years of Sun and Bronze, those who remembered brought the bones of their dead to the grey rock in the sea. Much is taken, much abides. We have Atlantic Amber, Sunset's Colors, Pine's Blood, A Widow's Candle, Lighted in Remembrance, Ava's Locks, A Pale Rack Washed Up on the Beach by Brandkrug. We have the Catacombs Altar, Bone is the Memory that Does Not Die. So Moon, Scale, and Winter. It will take in Devotion, an Element of the Soul, and Omen, Remains, Mark, or Cooperative. And then Memory or Remains for Remembrance. We have another Widow's Candle, Sacrament Asite. Back in the Dawn period, the Sisterhood of the Triple Knot used this in the Rites of the Horned Axe. Sea Glass, Lambrigbos Lende. So the two remaining rooms will have the Honeyed Forbidding, so Heart and Nectar, so Storm would be ideal for that, I think. And the Wing Haunted Cave, which is Forge and Grail. That's really more... you know, when I get around to it. There's a couple of particulars that that kept me from delivering it. I think I was holding out for some work on with Forge, just so I didn't need to hire Mrs. Kill, but that's absolutely not a requirement. But yeah, so we'll have 2 more rooms down here, 2 more rooms here, and then we can start opening the various vaults. But of course, I still have these books to catalog. I've got plenty of things to do. So I'm not going to focus that much on... I'll more take the opportunities as they emerge rather than focusing a whole lot on cracking open as many vaults as I can. Once Numa hits, though, I think we are going to put a lot of effort into assigning everything to the various branches in the Tree of Wisdoms. Okay, so... first things first, let's see if we can do a manual for departure without using using memories. So we will need VAC. I think my best knock is still surgeries and exsanguinations, but I don't want to... Yep. Okay. I don't believe I have a knock tool that I can apply. So yes, we are going to need a minute for to generate the pattern, which is fair enough. So here I'll use the Arab just because it's not necessarily something I'm going to need to use right away. Here we'll read Cardia's Delight, skipping volume 2 of the third volume of Abbot Jeffrey's Hypothetical Theological Dialogues in the Socratic Mode. Now, one thing that is nice here is that I can still take advantage of the opportunity to read all the other books that I need. So, The Savage Hymn, Secret Threshold, Pattern, Hindsight, Fear, Salt, and Stolen Secret. All of those are free game. And if I have the opportunity, I will also read the Newman text as well, but let's focus on the memories first. Alright, so at the Pale Desk, I'm just going to do this in order. Now, I believe if I use my drums and dances, I can get a Savage Hymn. So I'm going to skip the Savage Hymn for now. Secret Threshold we may potentially get from a conversation. But I'm willing to run that risk. Now, Pattern's already on its way. Hindsight. And then Fierce... Oh, hang on. Secret Threshold, too. Which I suppose technically I could still get with the use of a memory. All right. Okay, Secret Threshold, Pattern, Hindsight, Fear, Salt. Yeah, Salt and then the Newman, so we have plenty of room. I'm trying to remember... I think we're back to Deaths of the Moon. Okay, and we'll read Volume 1 of the Cosley work. From there, now this is an interesting question. So if I maybe, well, no, I don't want to use up the desks. You know, let's not make this any more complicated than it needs to be. So drums and dances for a Savage Hymn. I'm going to be short a pattern, but that won't be that hard to generate. In fact, what I will do here is we've got our minute going down now. Okay, so about 5 seconds grace. And from there, I'll just read the radical measure. And that'll get me a second pattern. So, oh, I made a bit of a boo-boo because I didn't keep a desk open that would have the knock. Nope, actually we'll still be fine because all of these other desks are going to become available. It's just this desk up here. Okay. My real problem was doubting myself. And we'll see what the pumps get us. The pumps sputter and die, but they've done their work. Uncovered depths. Once more, the sea has withdrawn from the caves of the isle. So the sea has claimed these caves. The tide thunders below. I'll need to find some way to lower the water level before I can enter. So, moon scale and circumstance. Now, it is worth mentioning that circumstances do disappear in Numa, so there is a way that you can wind up wasting those, but I obviously am not going out of my way to waste them, so we're fine. Now, in an emergency, I can still use the occult scrap, or even the curious hunch. The problem here is, so this is kind of it's interesting to sort of see the bet that I place with myself on the status of Numa. Because if I think Numa's coming, I want to keep a tight fist on the curious hunch. But if I think a Salon's coming up, then I actually want to get rid of the curious hunch, because I'm at the point now where I feel like I can reliably generate those. I'm not going to spend too much time thinking on that, and actually I should speak with Denzel because it doesn't hurt to have a source of memories. Denzel rarely works for free, but he won't take payment for helping a friend. Speak to Denzel, he might even reply. Okay. As I used to say in my youth, the day is done and so am I, but I've earned my pay. It is winter, and the storms have tightened the seas. I am sitting before the fire in the sweet bones, with a beef and potato pasty in one hand and a hot ale posset in the other. Here we go. Cardia's Delights, the third volume of Abbot Jeffrey's hypothetical theological dialogues in the Socratic mode. If Janus were an hour, Cardia might be counted among his names, but the world has never turned in such a manner, and so she is not. Jeffrey discusses the living signs, signs which change their shape and whose inflexibility is part of what makes it identifiable. He gives as one example the paradox of the hinge, and draws comparisons with the names called twins, who would be considered hours beyond the church. He hints at the amethyst vessel, which can be sanctified by great signs in the presence of Knock. Deaths and Their Evasions. Father Stanislav John Schaller writes of the means and limitation of passage between the orders of the Mansis. No long names hours. Unusually, Father John has written this book in Fusine for, he says, especial secrecy. He speaks very cautiously of the exceptions that can sometimes be made to the edicts of Chancel and Calyptra, and hints by the means by which he successfully returned a lantern long to flesh. Schaller mentions most cautiously of all that he has been permitted to see a book that speaks more deeply on the matter, but that it was surrendered into the shadow of a covenant stone of the Watchman's Tree. It can be retrieved if the 99th wink is reserved under the edict's liminal. Oblations in Iron, a monster hunting initiate of the hour named the Colonel, who identifies herself as Little Sophia, records the exhibits she has rendered to the Worm Museum in the Mansis. Little Sophia has never visited the Worm Museum, or even the Mansis in person, and evidently has no desire to do so. She mixes ink, which incorporates the remains of her prey, writes her records in that ink, and then burns them before the Colonel's altar. It is essential, however, to permit no drop of ink thereby obtained to enter any portal of the body, even a break in the barrier of the skin. Should any fragment of the worm remain viable, it might enter thereby, and the hunt's ultimate conclusion be melancholy indeed. Deaths of the Moon, a historical tract on various forms of survival after death. When the heart no longer beats, the Grail may keep the spirit in the body, and an appetite is indicated to sustain. Alukites are the best known, but not the only of this nature. This is the waning moon mode. The full moon mode is the intensification of one element of the soul to the point where ordinary sustention is unstable. Our protector, the generous of hosts, began of this nature, and its generosity remains ungentle. It is possible for the body's health or the heart's core to outpace the other elements, so that a static mode becomes impossible, and growth proceeds in dramatic stages until balance remanifests. Towards a Fundamental Aesthetic, or The House of Glass, Coseley considered this his masterwork. Techniques for perception and analysis which permit invidious and apocalyptic conclusions. Probably the most assiduously suppressed book in history. The entire run was destroyed. Even the presses were melted and dispersed, but the manuscript edition has survived. The perfect hegemony of the hours is perhaps eternal, but Coseley proposes and describes confinement inescapable, aesthetic and optical techniques which might contain even an hour, profoundly disrupting the order of the Mansis. He presents this as his own work, but there are hints here and there that he received inspiration or even assistance from the nowhere hour named Snow. On the Matter and Deeds of Serpents, this was probably the prophecies of the Naga rendered into English and illustrated by William Midnight in Paris in the 1880s, but it shows a number of divergences from that text. It's certainly quite recent by the standards of VAC texts. The serpent folk, called the Great Hooded Princes, come to know the order called the House of Leith and warred across the miles with them. They made an alliance with the Mother of Ants, whose children they had been. The text describes how the Great Hooded Princes escaped, or will escape, from the Fifth History, where they had died or were doomed to die. They engage in a secret conquest of the land of the Great River, called India in some histories, and have ensured that all other conquests of that land are false conquests. And finally, the Savage Hymn, Harsh on the Tongue. So one of the things I can do right here is just upgrade Horns and Ivories to start off with. So why did I think... So I've got Savage Hymn, Secret Threshold, a Pattern, Hindsight, but I didn't get a Fear for some reason. Okay, so slightly inconvenient because I have to get the Inescapable Confinement, but no real harm there. At last, I approach Mastery, improve the skill to level 8. So what I want to do before anything else, I'm just going to take a moment and I want to get the book in the queue. The Radical Measure, a manifesto for experimental and dangerous-sounding invocatory poetry written in sometime in the 19th century by Dr. Aaron Peel, a notoriously inconsistent and incoherent text apparently produced in a tearing hurry. The hours have little time for poetry, Dr. Peel avers, but they have a tremendous amount of time for poets. As the rose opens, Dr. Peel explains, an enduring memory opens to the horizon. This is a way of saying something that cannot otherwise be said, and is best only written with one's eyes firmly closed. Alright. So, just for starters, let's... actually, I'll use the Natan's desk in this case. So, we want to get a manual for departure. Use as much knock as I can to get that to where it needs to be. Gate flung wide. I'm a match for this book. So my expectation here is that I'll get 2 door and wall lessons. Now we're going to want to use one of those to get the final level of Horns and Ivories. So we're taking that one all the way. I think we'd said that we were going to do that earlier. So that really does mean I need to be on top of everything in terms of reading those books. So I'm going to do more or less the same thing as last time, but I'm actually going to do it in reverse order. So, Deaths and Their Evasions again, the Fusine text. You'll notice here that I'm using elements of the soul that aren't required for leveling up Horns and Ivories, and this is just because I want to draw down the door and wall lessons before the end of the day. So moving on to Salt, we're back to the Kukurbit Prisoner Records, 1928. We've already used Natan's desk, so now we move to the dining room. That one will be Fear. I'm trying to remember which ones... Wait, we did it up here. I think we did Stolen Histories, but we're on to the True History of Valentine de Wolf now. Next is Hindsight. So I want to be a little cautious with how I'm using the shaft here. Actually, you know what? I don't need that much metal. I will need some metal, but not enough to tie it up like this. So we're on to 7 shards. Right, sorry. Hindsight, not Fear. I said I wasn't going to read it, or sorry, I said I was reading it a certain way, and then I completely reversed myself on that, so. Okay, move that around, onto Just Verse. So there's our pattern. Now the Secret Threshold isn't available to us because of the, because I've tied up the VAC already. However, I can never remember which of these it is. Yeah, so that's the Amethyst Ampule. Put a little meter, maybe? Nope, that's the confounded... Oh, no, there we go. There's the secret threshold. Savage Hymn we get largely the same way. So why do it this way, you ask? Well, one, I still need to get the Newman again. But that justifies, you know, keeping one desk, not the other. The other desk lets me catalog the book. Now remember, we're still going to want to level up something like spices and savors, so I do need to keep some elements of the soul aside for that. But we've got more than enough to work with. So in this case here, I really just want to see what the uncatalogued books will get me. I don't believe we get any books from this area here. I think we get something that we can explore, but the real aim here was just to unlock the remaining rooms. Sea Caves, the Curia's last secret, right under Governor Collar's nose. Levinson, Blackwood, and Van Loren all continued their careful investigations of the Brandkrug Sea Caves. Many of the species here are unknown to Cornwall. Some have not been seen anywhere under this sun. So we have the menacing phosphorescence, so 14 moon, 14 nectar. Remembering here that 14 nectar means we can also open the honey forbidding, although that one's heart as well. And the most likely one that will be opening next, the Wing Haunted Cave. So 4 main rooms and then 7 in total with the vaults. Alright, well, there's my stolen secret. He does a lot with silence, this man. The skill is now level 8. Its power aspects have also increased. So I think what I'll do here is I'll just swap this with the bells and braziers. Unless that one winds up at level 9 at some point. I don't know if I had plans for it. Let's not mess with it. Okay, so this would be a point where I'd want to, if I have an option to do something with the consider verb, I kind of want to take it. One observation here would be we have a full minute before we're going to need before we're going to need to do an upgrade. So now would be a good time for me to just make sure I don't have any packages that I'd been neglecting. So we opened everything up inside here. There is the possibility that I left something on the bridge, but I think those have been handled. Okay, so we're in reasonably good shape. One potential option I would have would actually be to try and read Traveling at Night Volume 3, but I'm not sure I want to kind of poke the bear on that front. The other possibility that I have here is to try and remove the curse from Sevenfold Slaying of the Seven Coiled. That would require, I think I'd need to do this at the desk here. That does require me to use the Wormwood Dream, so my reluctance there is just, I don't know if I'll have the time to get it back. And of course, I've got, 3 texts here where I can level up things that I don't already have. I can level up skills that I need to with these 3, and then of course there's all of these bonus ones. So I guess all I'm trying to say here is there's no shortage of books for me to read, and the Sevenfold Slaying, while interesting, it's Disciplines of the Scar. So effectively it's Lantern and Edge. Do I think there's no use for Lantern and Edge? No, I mean I can probably find a useful... Actually, now that I think of it, that might be one that I'm running short on too. Because the lantern's not helpful. Not helping for me. We've already moved Oronoscopy and Surgeries and Exsanguinations. That was what we did in the last stream. Pearl and Tide is one that I know we haven't moved up. That one I largely know just looking at the... Oh, sorry, it's Sea Stories I was thinking of. Where's Pearl and Tide? Oh, yeah, no, Pearl and Tide at level 2. That's why I made a note of that one. So I guess what I'm trying to what I'm trying to find here is, do I have any examples of edge that I need? I don't really think I do. So sevenfold slaying would not just be one of these examples here, but it would actually be one that I need to apply to one of these lower levels. Unless... yeah, I guess I did have a home for the Menesque Reflections. Anyways, it doesn't matter. We'll sort that out later. It's definitely not a book I'm going to be reading right away. In fact, I should probably wrap it up here, but we've only got 30 seconds before we get our next batch of memories. So actually, it won't matter because I haven't... I won't have the book read yet, so maybe I will save that for the next entry. All right, another... well, in this case, a curse. Chionic Theoplasma. This book has suffered the attention of one of the chilly names or hours, perhaps even a god from nowhere. And this will get me quenchings and quellings. I'm trying to remember where that fits in the overall scheme of things. All right, so that is not a bad place to leave it. So the overall plans for the rest of the day, and I should probably make some notes of these for myself just because I don't know when I'm going to record the next one. We've got all of the memories on track for bringing Horns and Ivories to level 9, so there's no problem with that. Now, if this goes as expected, I'm going to be getting 2 lessons and specifically Forge and Knock lessons. So this suggests to me that Spices and Savors is the next one that we move up. If I try and find something else with Knock, I don't have any level 2 examples, and in fact I don't have any level 3s. The lowest level Knock that I have now is Door and Wall, which is the one that I have so much of a surplus of. So I think probably the argument here would be a lesson to Spices and Savors. We can bring that up to level 4. Technically, if I follow that convention, Menesque Reflections is the next one to get the level up, but of course maybe using the Disciplines of the Scar lessons would be good there. There's a couple of things that I can do to sort of, not subvert, but mess around with that rule a little bit, but there is something I kind of like. It's not a... this is not like an ironclad sort of argument that you can make, but I think one of the things that appeals to me about doing it this way is that by raising the floor for something like Spices and Savor, or, you know, whichever one, right? We start with Inks of Power and work our way up. But by raising the floor, I'm no longer in that situation where I'm sort of locking up this elevated set of level 9s. I have a reasonable chance with a bit of a manipulation in terms of memories and such to get things up. And we're kind of already at that point already, right? So, you know, this is where the cutoff to level 4 is. There aren't actually that many skills which are level 2 or lower. Not that like level 4 is the end all be all, but just the simple idea of being able to convert a card into some kind of output. Level 4 is where you wind up with at least one of the aspects at the full level, so you can basically just throw any old element to the soul and make something happen out of it. So that's not exactly a target, but it's definitely a nice little thing to reach for if you're uncertain about how you want to use the lesson. Anyways, I've worn out my exit, so thank you very much for watching. I'm definitely going to try and get a few more of these recorded. But I can't make a guess in terms of when the next episode will be because it depends on how many of these I get recorded. So I'll see you in the next one. Until then, take care.